Right, my beloved Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid, welcome back to the channel. Okay, we need to put a little bit of meat on the bone. I gave you guys my initial reaction to the match last night when I got back from the Bernabeu, but we need to have a slightly more detailed discussion because we look, this was a solid performance. I wouldn't say spectacular, but I would say definitely much improved. But there are some very, very serious takeaways that we have to be honest about, okay? Now, I'm going to give you 5 takeaways. We'll discuss the match briefly, and then I'll give you 5 takeaways that are going to be a little bit controversial. And I'm not doing this to be controversial. That is not the point of this channel. I'm always going to give you guys my very, very honest opinion. But this is going to be a little controversial. We're going to talk about Vini. We're going to talk about Kylian. We're going to talk about Gonzalo. We're even going to talk about Huijsen and Asensio. But there are some facts that we need to face, and we need to be honest about what we see. We know what football is. We know what football is about, and we know what football needs to look like. So we need to be very honest in terms of interpreting what we see. So I want to give you guys my 5 takeaways, and then we'll do player ratings and stuff like that. Okay, thanks for joining me. As always, lots of important stuff to discuss, so let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the match briefly, and then we'll talk about some takeaways, and then at the end I'll leave you with my sort of player ratings. Okay, look, in terms of the lineup, and I mentioned this yesterday, the only sort of surprises were Camavinga in the middle in the midfield instead of Arda Güler, and of course we played a 4-3-3. There was some possibility that we would play a 4-4-2, but that wasn't the case. We came out with a 4-3-3, Gonzalo replacing Kylian, and Camavinga taking that third spot in the middle of the pitch. But otherwise, I don't think this was a surprising lineup. Huijsen didn't make it. He hadn't trained the prior day, so Asensio took his place and I think did a pretty good job. Now, in terms of the match itself, look, the first 20 minutes, and we'll do the match quickly, the first 20 minutes I thought were very positive, okay? The team came out with a lot of intent, a lot of intensity. I thought the first 20 minutes were good. I mean, the ball movement was very, very quick. We were pressing with a lot of intensity. The entire team was pressing. It felt like we were playing in a coordinated way. There was a lot of movement off the ball, so there was just a lot of places to play the ball to. Our lines were very close together. I noticed that the distance between our Gonzalo and our last defender was quite narrow, so we were playing very compact football, which meant our players had a lot of support short and plenty of options long. So it looked good to me. In the second minute, so that the match started very well. In the second minute, Fede had a shot from distance that came quite close. In the 6th minute, there was a very clear penalty on Vini, and I don't know how on earth this wasn't called, but the ref discussion is one that we've had many times on this channel. We don't need to do it again. We all know what's going on here. But it was very much one-way traffic. I thought Jude was very active in the first half. He was doing a great job of finding Vini on the left. Vini was very active in the first half, creating a lot of danger, taking people on the left wing. In those initial minutes, Betis was only threatening from distance, so they felt quite soft. And this was a Betis team that came in, in 6th place, having only lost 1 of their last 13 matches. So this is a competitive squad. But like I say, in the first 20 plus minutes, we were very dominant. By the way, the Betis defensive transition was very quick. One thing you notice in the stadium is that when they had to sort of retract, they were very quick. So it made our transitions, our counters, a little bit more difficult. So Betis is a competent team. Let's not forget that. But okay, the first goal came in the 20th minute, a wonderful header by Gonzalo, who had the night of its life. Now, after the goal, unfortunately, this is something we tend to do. We kind of drop our shoulders and we lose intensity after we score. We seem to lose it after the opponents score as well. I don't know what it is about scoring a goal that seems to suck the wind out of us, or taking a goal. But anyway, after the goal, we started to I think lose a little bit of steam, and we kind of very slowly allowed Betis to kind of get into the match a little bit more. They weren't particularly threatening, but we definitely lost, sort of total control of the match. I think the first 20 minutes were great, but we kind of started to go downhill a little bit after that. Now in the second half, we started, Vini was trying his stuff on the left. We had our first scare in the 49th minute. Betis came, very, very close to scoring. And just as things were feeling a little uncomfortable, we got the 2-0, which was a fantastic goal by Gonzalo. This was sort of a pure number 9 strike. He drops the ball with his chest, and then the volley was absolutely perfect. Now, I have to admit, the marking was pretty terrible because he had a player to his left, he had a Betis player to his right and his left, and neither of them closed him down. So I think they didn't make it uncomfortable for him. We have to admit that the defending was pretty poor, but the execution of the goal was absolutely outstanding. It just, could not have been executed any better. Now, Betis was constantly fouling. There were a lot of tiny little fouls that was just very annoying. The play was very interrupted. Only 6 minutes later, we had the 3-0, the goal by Asensio, a good header. He sort of put his head in the right place. There were a lot of people in front of him as the ball was coming to him, but he sort of intuitively just put his head where he thought the ball could end up, and it turned out to be absolutely perfect. So that put us at 3-0. And that kind of, obviously you would expect us to sort of relax a little bit in that situation, but the intensity really dropped. I mean, it dropped a little more than I think was absolutely necessary. And after the 3-0, things started to get a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, in the 61st minute, Betis hit the post, and that was just kind of a warning because Betis was starting to get into the game. We had actually a really interesting play in the 63rd minute where Courtois, with his arm, passed the ball to Rodrigo and created a counter. I think that must have been 60 or 70 meters with his arm. I mean, it is not easy to throw a football 60, 70 meters with your arm, believe me. That I thought was pretty amazing. Okay, in the 65th minute, we had the goal by Betis, and this was, I think, lax defending. I think Rudiger is he was a little bit too slow in that play. The Betis player got between two of our defenders, slightly unforgivable defending. I don't think that there was that much that Courtois could do. Some people say he should have gone to ground earlier. He went to ground too early. Look, in fairness, I don't think we can blame Courtois for that goal. But at this point, Betis was kind of on the front foot. You started to hear the crowd was getting nervous around the 69th minute. I wrote in my notes, the crowd is starting to whistle. We're starting to get nervous. And at this point, it felt like we were just trying to run out the clock. And that really, I hate that sort of thing, okay? This is the kind of play that really drives me crazy. I hate this sort of play. When you're just passing the ball in the back and you're just trying to kill the clock. And what that does is it takes all of the running out of your play, because if you're trying to kill the clock, the ball is just going from a static player to another static player. So the ball is going from foot to foot, but nobody's really making runs. And it's just a matter of time before you lose the ball. What you want to do is always play the ball forward and finish plays and make sure that every single play finishes with an attempt. Well, if you're trying to play keep away, that doesn't happen. You're passing the ball from static player to static player, which is a recipe for disaster. And the Bernabeu can smell this kind of stuff. So the crowd was getting very, very impatient, and understandably so. In the 72nd minute, Tchouaméni had an open header that could have very easily gone in. Now Betis hit the crossbar in the 75th minute. At this point, the game was very kind of back and forth, and it looked like Betis could score their second goal. And this is when the crowd was really getting very, very uneasy. In the 76th minute, Rodrigo and Bini came out and Arda and Mastantuono came in. We were sort of struggling to get the ball during these minutes. Those changes helped a little bit. I think they helped us a little bit in terms of possession. In the 80th minute, Tchouaméni went out and Ceballos came in. And then we had in the 83rd minute the wonderful goal by Gonzalo to fill his hat trick. And this was just a wonderful little flick with his heel. It was such a quick reflex, because if you watch that play, he did the only thing that he could really do. I mean, he didn't have time to really control the ball or do anything else, but his reflex was absolutely perfect. And this was just, a spectacular hat trick by Gonzalo, and I couldn't be happier for the kid. Okay, a very good play by Carreras in the 84th minute. In the 88th minute, Mendy and Fran came in for Gonzalo and Rudiger, and Gonzalo got a massive standing ovation. By the way, you should check out the shorts on the channel, because I put up a short of the standing ovation that Gonzalo received, and very deservedly so. It was really, really cool. I think it must have been one of the happiest days of his life, because the entire stadium stood up for him, which is not an easy thing to do at the Bernabeu. And then in the final minute of the match, we had the goal by Fran to sort of make it 5-1. And look, I would say that on the whole, this was a good performance. I think that, we had spells of very good play. We also had spells where we kind of lost intensity and lost concentration, which is kind of a hallmark of the team this year. But I do think that we for the most part, played well. And I think there were definitely signs of improvement in terms of our play. So I can understand some of the sort of newfound optimism. And I think in terms of morale, helps a lot going into the Super Cup. Now, let's talk about broader takeaways and discussions that are a little bit uncomfortable, but that we need to be honest about, okay? And I'm going to get into a lot of trouble because, there are people out there that just absolutely love Vini or absolutely love Kylian, and any kind of criticism, and people freak out. So I'm making myself very vulnerable here to friction, but I'm just going to tell you my opinion. Uncomfortable truth number one: Kylian hurts our collective play. Okay, Kylian is one of the best players in the world. He's one of the best players any of us have ever seen. He's lightning quick, dribbles like a demon, finishes like all hell. He's been playing at the highest level of world football for years. He's an extraordinary player, and there is no question that he is, if not the best player in the world, certainly top 3. All of this is true, but he's just not good for our collective play. Okay, there is something about, look, this is a little bit too reminiscent of Kylian's last years at PSG. In his last years at PSG, even when Messi and Neymar were there, Kylian was their best player. He was their most consistent player, their most prolific goal scorer, and yet PSG played terrible football as a team. Now, there is a problem when your number 9 is not a natural number 9, because a number 9 is a player that, typically speaking, in most conventional situations, is a 1 to 2 touch player. Okay, your number 9, okay, all the dribbling and all that stuff happens on the wings because that's where you can get behind defenders and find space. But your number 9 is a player that you want to spend quite a bit of time in the box, and you want him to finish plays. He is not a player that you necessarily want to drift out of the box to the middle of the pitch and pick up the ball in the middle of the pitch and control it, turn around and face 5 defenders and try to dribble through them. That is not what you want your number 9 to do. You also, if he's drifting off to the wing, now you're displacing your wingers. They have to come into the middle, and they're not natural number 9s either. So this is posing a problem. And we have to be honest about this. Kylian is in terms of our collective play, he slows us down, because how many times have you seen Kylian play one touch? How many times have you seen Kylian play 1 touch or 2 touches very quick and just keep the play going, keep the momentum going? It's kind of rare. I mean, most of the time Kylian will try to find the ball. If he's in the box and not getting the ball, he'll drift out and try to touch it in the middle of the pitch or somewhere else. But what he'll do is control the ball, bring the ball down, face defenders, and then try to take 4 people on or 5 people on. But that slows the collective play down. What you want is sort of just quick play. You don't want your number 9 slowing the play down and starting to dribble himself. That's not necessarily his job. The job is to finish plays. And I think that our collective play does look better. If we go back to the Club World Cup and we look at what's happening this season, we have to be honest that we play better collective football when Kylian isn't there, even though I think he's an amazing player and one of the best in the world, and he's playing very well and scoring tons of goals, but he has an impact on our collective play. And I think that we have to be honest about this. So I know you guys are going to kill me, but go ahead. But that's just my opinion. Okay, number 2, Gonzalo is an exceptional number 9. Okay, and he's an exceptional team player. Now, this is a very inconvenient and very uncomfortable reality that we have to face. Gonzalo is a very good, what you notice, and the big advantage of watching the games live is that you can see the movement of all the players all the time. Gonzalo is an extremely good team player. He always knows where to be. He knows when he needs to come in and provide support short. He knows when he needs to make a long run and be in the box. And he's always in the right place at the right time because he knows what his role is. I find that Gonzalo is an exceptional number 9. He's an exceptional team player. And I think maybe the answer is that Vini and Kylian need to fight for the left wing and figure out who gets more minutes. And maybe that's the answer, but maybe we need to play with a natural number 9 and play with 2 wingers. And since and Vini and Kylian can fight it out and see who gets more minutes on the left, but we play with a normal number 9, and maybe that'll help our collective play. This is maybe a controversial thing to say, but it's not a ridiculous thing to think, and if you just observe the way we've been playing. Okay, that is an uncomfortable truth, and that Gonzalo is a better collective player than Kylian, and our collective play looks better when he plays as opposed to Kylian. This is just an observation, and you can tell me what you think. Okay, uncomfortable truth number 3. Vini only lasts one half. Okay, like one of the things that you get out of making these videos where I watch the match, live, then I watch it on TV again, and I'm like taking notes. I notice, because I make these videos after every match, Vini always performs better in the first half. Now, I wonder why that is, but there's a simple explanation. Vini's style of play depends very, very much on explosiveness and power. Okay, he's a guy that goes from 0 to 100 instantly, and he does it over and over and over. Now, if you've ever done interval training for an hour, as opposed to just running at a certain speed for an hour, the difference in terms of the toll on your body is night and day. If you're doing interval training and you're doing sprints at your maximum capacity over and over and over, and that is much more tiring than running at a steady speed for that same period of time. Okay, Vini's style of play means that he doesn't have 90 minutes in him. He does not have 90 minutes in him, because in the second half, he runs out of gas. He runs out of gas. And if you look at sort of how many times he takes people on in the first half versus how many times he takes people on in the second half, Vini doesn't have 90 minutes in him. Okay? And this is maybe one more reason why Vini and Kylian should fight it out to see who starts on the left wing, but that we actually play with a normal lemon. Like, this is another reason. Another reason is that our left winger cannot sustain 90 minutes. Because, when was the last time that Vini played a full 90 minutes at the same level? It's very rare. He tends to do more in the first half. You guys can check that if you want. I only know this because I do these videos so often that I have to make these observations. But anyway, it's an uncomfortable reality. Vini's a wonderful player, explosive as hell, but he doesn't have 90 minutes in him. Okay, uncomfortable truth number 4. Asensio might be better than Huijsen. Now, I know this is controversial, and we just spent a ton of money bringing Huijsen, and Huijsen started very well, but then it's kind of gone a little bit downhill in the last few matches. Asensio, the other way around. He sort of made a couple of mistakes in the Club World Cup, but his play has really, really improved, and the Asensio that we're seeing now is playing very well, and I almost trust him more than Huijsen, which is quite something to say. So I would expect Asensio to play against Atletico de Madrid, but this is another decision that we have to consider. Is Huijsen necessarily a starter ahead of Asensio? And I'm not so sure anymore. So that could be controversial. Let me know what you think. Okay, number 5, the fifth uncomfortable truth that we all have to face. Real Madrid has a mismanagement problem, and it starts from the top and it goes all the way down. And why do I say this? Because Real Madrid has a duplication problem. And this is exactly what happened with the Galácticos. And I lived here in Madrid and watched every game when I watched that train wreck unfold in slow motion, because it started with the duplication of Figo and Beckham. And then you started moving pieces around because you just were buying names, you were buying commercial attention, you were buying marketing, but you weren't thinking in football terms. I think that we're doing something similar now because we have a duplication problem on the left. Okay, we brought Kylian knowing that he's a left winger. That is his natural position. We've had to reconvert him to a 9, and he's scoring tons of goals, but he's slowing our play down, like I just mentioned. That we have a duplication problem. We also have a duplication problem in the number 10 position, because we brought Jude, who played as number 10 last night, and I think played quite well. But we also have Arda Güler, who I think is a natural number 10, because Arda doesn't have the physicality to be an 8 or a 5. Okay, Jude maybe does, because he's a more physical player, but Jude can also play 10. So now we have 2 players that are very good playing in the number 10 position that we're duplicating. Why? Because we had to get Arda Güler. Why? Because everyone said he was a genius kid, so he's really good and talented, and we need to have the best of the best, so we just brought him. Okay, but were we thinking, properly with our heads, like position by position, where do we need to strengthen? No, we weren't thinking that way. We were thinking, Kylian is a brand. Florentinos wanted him for years, and this is just management stubbornness. We're thinking about the commercial aspect of selling shirts and TV rights and merchandising and publicity and getting part of his image rights every time he does an underwear ad or something. So we're thinking commercially, but we're not thinking in sporting terms. So we end up bringing players like Kylian, bringing players like Arda, who are wonderful players. But you're duplicating positions. You're duplicating the left wing. Now you're duplicating the number 10 position. And this creates friction. And I'm telling you, this was the unraveling of the Galácticos. And I think that there are some parallels here. And we need to be very, very honest about this. So we needed another defender is what we needed. We needed another, if you just looked objectively at what we needed at the beginning of the season, is we need to pack our defense. And maybe if you had the money and you found the right player, a kind of a creative midfielder, but no, we brought in players that are duplicating each other in terms of position. And it's becoming a problem now. It's becoming a problem now because you have to manage this, and the players are unhappy, and then you get tension, and then the manager's under pressure, and the press here will find any excuse to crap on Real Madrid at the slightest little hiccup. So it all kind of compounds, and you end up in a crisis at the slightest, 3 draws in a row, and you're in crisis. So, but these are problems that we have to live with now because we made decisions that did not make sense to me. They made sense commercially. They made sense in terms of just hoarding talent because Arda is a genius and Mbappe is a genius and we just want to hoard them. And we brought Enrique and look what happened to him. Now we have to ship him off to France because he couldn't get minutes. Like this is not intelligent planning. This is planning. It's kind of based on 2 things, marketing and commercial rationales. And number 2, FOMO. It's fear of missing out. Why do you think we brought Mastantuono and Arda Güler and Enrique? Because everybody said these are the youngsters of the future, and we had a positive experience with Rodrigo and Vini, so we thought if there's any youngster out there that is remotely exceptional, we need to have him and we need to own him now. And that's what we did, and that was the rationale. But we end up with the squad that we end up with, and it's not balanced, and you have to put square pegs in round holes, and this is why we end up having problems. So look, those are the 5 very uncomfortable truths in my opinion. If you disagree, please let me know, but I'm just giving you my honest opinion. All right, let's go to players last night. We'll do this very quickly. Okay, Courtois. I thought Courtois was good. I don't think he could have done that much in the goal. He didn't have too much work, but he did have a couple of pretty good saves. I'd give him something like a 6. Okay, Fede. I thought Fede was great. I think Fede was like a 7 or an 8. Fede is one of those players that you can play him anywhere on the pitch and he's going to deliver. I don't know what it is about him. Fede, Fede's one of the reasons that Uni Carafat still has his job, okay? It's like, we paid something like 5 million euros for Fede Valverde, which is insane. I mean, this is one of the best midfielders in the world, and he's one of the best box-to-box midfielders. He's just unbelievable. He's just a fantastic player, and I think this was a home run. And Fede, he's been so consistent. I think Fede and Tchouaméni have been the most consistent players these last few months. Fede I thought was wonderful. I'd give him a 7 or an 8. He just always delivers. He never disappoints. Okay, Rudiger. Rudiger I thought was okay, not great. I think in the goal, if you had to attribute blame to someone, it would probably be Rudiger. He was maybe a step slow there. But I think otherwise he played an okay match. I don't think it was anything to write home about, but I would give him maybe something like a 5 or a 6. Asensio, I think Asensio was a little bit better. There were a couple of situations where he backtracked and kind of showed his speed. He's a very speedy, gritty player. He has a lot of character. I love that. He's a very physical guy, very aggressive. He likes to get in there. He likes contact. He's very stubborn, very proud. He's a player that has characteristics that I really like. And like I say, he's been playing quite well. And I think Huijsen is going to have to compete for that spot because Asensio has been delivering. I think in terms of last night, I'd probably give him a 7. Okay, Carreras, I think would be another 7. I think he played really well. He had some beautiful flashes of technique. I like it when Carreras goes forward because, he's not just a dumb fullback that just pops balls into the box. I mean, he's very skillful with the ball. He can play the 1-2s, quick 1-touches. He's very skillful. If you press him, he can get out of pressure quite well because he's very technical and dribbles very well. So he defended very well and I think contributed a lot going forward. I think Carreras had a really complete match. I'd give him a 7. Okay, Tchouaméni, by the way, lots of 6s and 7s in this match, just by virtue of the type of match it was. Tchouaméni, I'm going to say 7 again. He's been playing pretty much at a sort of 7 level for the last year. Ever since he got whistled last year at the Bernabeu, Tchouaméni has been one of the most consistent players on the squad. He's playing very, very well. He does a very good job of gluing that sort of, the connection between the defense and the middle of the pitch and initiating play, your first outlet balls, he's doing a very good job with that. Defensively, he's in the right place at the right time, steals a ton of balls. He has that physicality. He's good in the air. I think Tchouaméni's just been wonderful for the last 12 months. So I'd give him like a 7. Camavinga, I'm probably going to say a 6. I think he did well. Camavinga is more of an erratic type player. He's like slightly less predictable. He tends to move position a lot, but he does bring you a lot of athleticism, a lot of kind of defensive grit. He chases balls a lot. He makes a big physical effort. He's got those long legs and that elasticity, so he tackles very well. He presses the ball very well. I think he had a decent match. His ball distribution wasn't great, but I think he had a decent match. I'd probably give Camavinga a 6. Okay, Jude. I'm going to give Jude a 7 because I thought he had an amazing first half. And then he just, he sacrifices so much because he defends a lot as well. Now, yesterday he was playing a bit further up, so he was playing as a 10, so he wasn't defending as much as he normally does, but he does give 100% every single match. I think he linked up really well with Vini in the first half. Showed us, a few beautiful displays of technique, which I'm a sucker for. So I think Jude had a decent match. I'd give him like a 7. Bini, I think, is like a 5 or a 6. I think in the first half he was very destabilizing and he was causing all sorts of trouble, and it was kind of the Vini that we love. But you can't just do that for half a match. I mean, if that's what you do, you need to bring it the 90 minutes. But he fizzled out as the game went on, and I think he was a lot more muted in the second half. So I think Vini had a sort of 5 or a 6. Now there's rumors out there that he was whistled when he left the pitch. This is grotesquely exaggerated. I was there. That they didn't get whistled. There may have been a few people that whistled, and if you had one camera in one particular spot, you may have heard somebody whistle, but it wasn't. There was no. I didn't hear whistles, and I was right there. So I think that the press is always trying to find problems and cause problems. So I think you got to take that with a pinch of salt. I think Bini played probably a 5 or a 6, and he was applauded when he left the pitch. So just don't believe all those stupid stories. Okay, Gonzalo, I'm going to give Gonzalo a 10 because what do you want me to do? Okay, the guy touches 3 balls and he puts them in the back of the net in the most spectacular manner because the header was beautiful. The second goal, the volley off his chest, was spectacular. And then the little flick with his back heel was just gorgeous. So I don't know what to tell you. This is a fabulous team player. This is a natural number 9. This is a killer. This is a kid who deserves more minutes, and we need to very seriously consider playing him as a number 9 on a more regular basis. I thought he had the night of his life, and I couldn't be happier for him. I think Gonzalo was amazing, so he gets a 10. Okay, Rodrigo is going to be a 7 or an 8. Now, I know he didn't score, and he scored recently, although he's coming off a sort of year-plus drought. But Rodrigo worked really hard yesterday. I kind of really liked his attitude yesterday. He defended a lot more than Bini, for example. He did a lot more backtracking. There were so many plays where he came back to the middle of the pitch and helped steal balls. I think he made a massive effort to follow Xavi's instructions in terms of pressing, but he also had enough energy to go forward and make runs on the right. Sometimes they switched sides and he would appear on the left. But I think Rodrigo was very involved in play consistently throughout the match, and I think both offensively and defensively, I think played pretty well. So I'd give him maybe a 7 or an 8. Okay, guys, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I know this stuff is controversial, and believe me, none of this is designed to sort of provoke hysteria. I'm just telling you my honest opinion, but I'd love to hear what you guys think because I really enjoy your comments. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for joining me as always. Love you guys, and as always and forever, a la Madrid.